Hello guys. Today I have how should I say it? It's like a super newbie slash beginner video. I saw this post on Facebook, and probably many people who already explained this, but I thought I would make my own. And the post was basically, how can I export a file from Fusion 360 so that I can print it in a 3D software. For most people this will sound like a no-brainer, but you know, if you're extremely new beginner, you just started using Fusion 360 like this guy did. Basically this guy only wanted to create a cylinder and just try to print. He wanted to create his own thing, try to print it, and he found it difficult because when he tried to save as, he just ended up being able to save as a PNG file, as a picture file. And he found that it was difficult because he couldn't use that in the 3D software. So this video will just show you quite quickly how you can bring your design in Fusion 360 into a 3D program. Sorry, I have to wipe my glasses. I couldn't see anything. Still not good, but good enough. So here you have Fusion 360, and the base thing you do in Fusion 360, if you're really new, you activate Origin, and then you have the different planes. It's the bottom, one side, and the other side, and these are where you create the sketches. So let's just start with making a cylinder like the guy did. So you mark a side, and then you click on the Sketch tab, and then you can go to the Create menu, and you can just make a circle. In this case I'm designing the sketch, so you can extrude it. So you make it any size you want, and you press Finish, and then you can just mark it, and you press E for Extrude, which is like extend the size, and then you just drag it like this. Voila! Now you have a new body, and then you have the object you want to print, basically. Okay. So how do you print this if you want to print it? Well, the way you do it in many ways is you can either export it to a memory stick or a SIM card or an SD card or something that you can put into your printer manually. Some printers don't have Wi-Fi or connectivity to a network, so you have to actually put it on a memory stick. And the best way to do that is to go to, first you need to know what file types do the printer support if you want to do it directly. The most common types that I know of is something called STL and OBJ file formats. Now if you select Save here, you don't actually get an ability to save to a file type. So what you normally would do here, you will go to File, the File menu, and then you will select Export, and then you can give it a title, and then you have to select the file format you want to export. And you can see, like if you're using Orca Slicer or Bamboo Studio, those use something called 3MF files. Now Orca Slicer will love this. Bamboo Studio may sometimes not like it because it prefers its own format, which is like a subformat of 3MF files. But you can save it as that, or you can create it as a step file. Many printers support that. STL file or OBJ files. These are usually the most used one to export. Now I prefer STL files, and I'm going to explain why. If you select OBJ files and the object you have contains different kind of objects, and you bring it into, let's say, Orca Slicer, it is harder to maintain the positions of the objects. So I'm going to show you here. I'm gonna make a new sketch on top of this, and I'm gonna make a a smaller one, but it's going to be its own separate object. See, so I have a circle, extrude that upwards, but I don't want it to join here. I want it to be its own body. So basically what you have is now, if you look here, you have two bodies. There's one and there's one, and you want to print them both together, but you want them to keep the position. You don't want them to sort of end up on the floor, because you want to print them. Let's say you want to print two different colors. You want to print with two different filaments with a bamboo printer. So you can. This is just to illustrate. I'm just gonna select different colors here. So fusion appearances. Paint. Let's just go for paint. Glossy. And we can just select download a red and download a green, just to have an example. I'm just showing you also now how you can just color it. So you can have that green, you can have that red. Okay. So this is just an example to show you that it's actually two separate objects. Now, the export feature is made so that everything you can see will be exported together. So in this case, I want to export both of them to an STL file. File, export, and I bring it to an STL file. And then I select, I don't want it there, I want it in its own, let's see, documents. Test. Just say I want it in the test, so it's a documents test. So this is an STL file. So if you look here now in the documents and document test, now I have an STL file. I can copy that to a memory stick or whatever, so you can just insert it into the printer. And the printer, most printers can actually understand this file and print it directly. Now, in this case, I'm going to open Orca Slicer, which is my preferred choice of slicer because I'm gotten used to it. It's very similar to the bamboo slicer. And create a new project. And then let's say because I can send it to my printer. If you don't have a printer that has a networking, you would have to upload this directly to the printer, so you're more limited. So if you have a printer without networking, you cannot do what I'm going to do now, basically. But this is if you have a networking printer, like any printer with a Wi-Fi connection, you can usually do this. And then you go to File, which is basically you have your surface, and you have your Add button up here. And then you select where you have the document, which is this and test. Where's the test? Here's test. And click, mark it, and open. See? Now you have the open object in the slicer. Now what you need to remember is this is actually two objects. So here, if you select the Objects tab instead of the global one, you can view every object as separate objects if they are separated. Now there are some things with this. If you mark this object and you right click, you have this split thing. Notice what happens when you click two objects. If you split it to objects, it moves the top object to the bottom of the platform. There is no way to prevent that. So if you then go to here and you arrange it, you will see that they both are on the same level. Now I do not want that. Now if I had exported this as an OBJ file, the Orca Slicer, as far as I can see, do not support anything but splitting two objects. But since I use an STL file, Control Z, I am back here. I haven't split it yet. You can right click and you can select split to parts. What happens when you select split to parts is that you get two objects, but they maintain their position. And the good thing about this is that you can use this way to organize different kinds of objects together so that these objects print layer based. So I'm going to show you a different model here, which is something I've been printing. Here you can see a different model. This is going to be like a print in see-through PETG. But you can see here, if I select objects, that I have several different parts. So you see I have something called solid here, because I have used, just going to show you here quickly. This is PVA. The bottom one here, it contains, there are several ones. One at the bottom. The reason it selects the whole thing there is because there is one under there, and then there is one on the inside, and you can see there's also one at the top. So it keeps it as the object. I exported them as an STL file containing 3 objects, which I made with a certain height in comparison to the original object. So the PVA one here, PVA is a soluble filament, so you can dissolve it in water, in case you don't know. I use that as a basis for the rest of the filament, so that it's like a manual bridge, if you understand. So what happened is that if I slice this object like this, you can see that it will print the ports up to here. Then I have the PVA, and then there's a solid layer of PVA which I manually added as an STL file, and then after that it will have a different layer which I manually added, which is this solid layer here, and then that one prints for a few more layers. See, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, or 3 layers, and then it starts to print like normal. And then again there's another layer here which I manually added as an STL file, and then you get another PVA layer. So you see, like this, you can use STL files to import the parts so they don't move. Now, the easiest way to do that is to right click and take add part and load. As long as the object is made exactly in the same position in Fusion 360, it will add itself to the same positions in the slicer. So if I have the objects made, like if I wanted to add the top part here, I could export that as an STL file and add it as a part on top of the other part, and it will place itself on top. Do you understand? So that is how I do it. Now the other way you can do this is that when you have 2 different parts like this, you can also separate. If you see down here, there are different options for each of the parts. So you can select that, okay, I want the bottom part, which is this one, I want that to be 100% infill. That means that it will be a fully solid object. And when you then slice it, you can see that everything is 100% solid. There is no infill. Or you can select that part to be 20% infill, and you can slice it again, and you can see now it's 20% infill. And then you can select the other part on top to have an infill of 80. Or let's say you wanted 100, because you want to use it like that. Like the layers I showed you earlier on my object, they are solid layers because I want them to be solid. I don't want them to have infill. So then you slice it, and then you see it's by infill, and then you get to the other object at the top. You see now it comes to the top, and then it prints that second object with solid infill. And because of the way this is now designed, because they start like where the previous object ends, the second one starts in the exact micrometer of each other. You can either set it to print with a different filament, like here, I can go in and I can set, okay, I want to use the blue filament for the bottoms bottom section, but in the objects tab here, I can select, oh, I want the little one there to be a different color of PETG, so I can select that to be red. And now it will print blue PETG and red PETG in one print operation, since I have an AMS X1 carbon. Or you can go in and you can say, okay, I want to change the filament. If you have a manual one, you can say, okay, I want to change the filament. So you have a slice, and you see it. And you can say, okay, I get to, that's the first layer of the next filament. So you can right click here, you can select add pause, and you can slice it again. What happens then is that if you're using a printer that don't have an AMS, it will pause the print at that point, and you can go and you can change filament, and you can resume the print, and then you print a different color if you change the filament. So that is the advantage of having a slicer. You can do a lot of extra things. If you have this same STL file and you just imported it to the printer, everything would just be one solid object in one type of filament. It cannot, there is no information in the STL file telling the printer that, oh, I need to print this in different colors. So my advice is get a printer that has a network connection so you can use a slicer. So that was a little bit about how you export an object as a file and then bring it into your slicer. Or you can just bring it straight to your printer. Now, there is, I'll close this, and then you see we have this object. There is an easier way, and I sometimes prefer this because I have a feeling it gives more detail when you do that. The problem is it cannot print two objects at the same time from Fusion 360. It can only take one. And once you bring it over, you cannot split it, because it will only detect it as one object. But if you have like a detail thingy, sometimes the detail is lost if you save it as an STL file. So I sometimes prefer to print the main object directly and then add like the layers, like I did with the cube you saw earlier. So in this case, you can also go back to Fusion on the file, 3D print, and then you can select the objects you want to print. In this case, I want to print this. But it doesn't let you select multiple objects, it only lets you select one. I actually wish that Fusion 360 could incorporate this, so if you click this, you actually get them into any slicer, but as two different objects, just in the same placement. That would be a brilliant feature. They have other multi-selection things here, not for print, but for other things. So, like for instance, you have the move function. Here you can select this, and you can select, okay, you cannot multi-select, but like if I want to move those together, you see it says selection 2 selected. They could have something like that for print as well. But in this case, I want to print the bottom cylinder. Click the file menu, and then you click 3D print, and then you see you can select which format you want to send to the printer. Some slicers have a different format, and as far as I know, maybe you can send 3D print. What happens if you don't send the 3D print utility? Then you get the option to save it as that file. Save the project in the cloud. Okay, so that's an option. No? Instead of exporting, you can select the file type. Okay, so you can either select it before or after. File, print. You see, there's no selection. Sorry, not so much sleep last night. Now, if you haven't selected it already, select send to 3D print utility, and then print utility custom. I am not sure what preform means. Apparently for something special. Custom, and then here you can just browse to the exe file of your slicer. In my case, I have selected Orca Slicer, where it's installed, And then when I press OK, you can see that it opens Orca Slicer on the side, and then I get the object there. Now let's say I want to print the other one as well with this. It makes it a little bit more tricky, and I could go back and I can do another print operation for this one. File, 3D print, and then it will start a second session of Orca Slicer. And it will automatically move it at the bottom of the build plate, as you can see. And then you can go to the file, save project as, and you can select the 3MF file. Let's say documents, test, and 3MF, yes, and you can close that. Then you can go back to the previous model you had here, and then you can go to add and documents and test body. Then you import the geometry only, okay, and then you see you get two objects. So if you click on the objects tab, you have two objects, and that's the other one. And then you can select, see, I mark in here, and then it's inside but it's marked. And then you can select move, and then you get the ability to heighten it. But before I move that, I'm gonna see how big it is. So let's remove the move, and I'm gonna select this, and let's see, I think there is a measuring tool here. I'm not I usually don't use that, so let me see. There, measure. So let's see, I want to measure from there to here. So that's 65 millimeters, okay? And then I can use that, which I learned. I can go to the other one, which is sort of hidden inside, and I can select move. And you can see by the color that if I want to move it upwards 65 millimeters, I have to change the blue one. So I type 65 here. Uh, 65 -00. Why doesn't it want to move? I think it sort of locks itself inside the object because it requires to be on a build plate. Position. I really wish that at least Orca Slicer allowed for moving the objects up a certain amount. Is there a modifier? No. I'm trying Alt Shift Control. There's nothing. But it would let you move it sideways. Split the parts. You can see that there is like a assembly view. Turn. So okay. So you get the gist of how to print directly from it. I sometimes feel like if you use an STL file, you could get like edges on the circle, depending on the resolution. But if you print directly from Fusion 360, it will interpret it as a perfect circle instead. So I feel sometimes that the detail is better. I could totally be wrong in that, but because at the end of the day, when you print from Fusion 360, it basically just export it as an STL file or whatever. Yeah. So that was just a basic introduction to how you can directly print from Fusion 360. And it is a beginner video. There will probably be a lot of comments like, oh, you could do it like this and that, and I know there are different ways to do it, but my video is based on like a request that I saw on Facebook where a totally beginner, he just bought a printer, he never used a slicer, he only tried to learn Fusion. He could make a cone or a circle or whatever and make it into an object, and he just wanted to print it to test it, and he didn't know how. And in Fusion 360, even the free version, that is totally possible, and it's not hard at all. You just need to play with it. And yeah, Fusion 360 is I started using it like 3 years ago, and I can show you one of my most intricate models I have made. Let's see, find it. I think this is it. And I started with OnShape. I don't like OnShape because it's too limited in functionality, I think, compared to Fusion 360. I like to have the local version, so even if I don't have net or something like, then I can just use it perfectly fine. When you have big models, it takes a little bit more time than normal. So I'll hide the sketches. Turn off analysis. And then you have backplate and sketches, placeholder, all this I modeled myself. So you can say it's not difficult to do things in Fusion 360. It just takes time, and yeah. So play around with Fusion 360, and let's say I want to print this. It's not going to come out right because it's not a solid object. But then you can see, you could theoretically print, no problem. So subscribe, like if you like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped the very few beginners on how they can learn how to print directly from Fusion 360. And I'm sorry, I'm sliding down during print. I think I'm too heavy for my chair. Oh! My chair is slowly sagging down. So I'm like, soon I'll be like, I can barely see you guys. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a nice one. Until the next one.